Before he could tell us to get off my plane, we had to put him in some very serious, clear, and present danger.
Were you jamming out to Woodstock in 1994?
Hey everybody, it's another episode of your favorite show that's both nostalgic and timely. Yes, folks, it's time for Back for Our Future, the show that goes back to look at our past and yours and contrast it against the future. With me, as always, is the man with the steel trap memory, world's greatest historian of our memories, collectively our being just me and Tony. Tony Nick Najati, welcome back, buddy. Good to see you.
Good to see you, pal. Getting off a little vacation there, looking all spry.
All spry from a vacay. That's right. It was interesting. I on the trip, I made the kids listen. So for every hour that I had to listen to modern pop garbage, they had to listen to 1 hour of daddy garbage. And we had a good rotation. We had a lot of stuff from the 90s, a lot of Lithium on XM. And then every once in a while we'd switch over. And then for some reason, I think she just likes to say the name, but Pearl, my youngest, she really likes Gojira. which I only think she likes the name, but for whatever reason, the kid loves to do it. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about today. It is 1994, and there is a tremendous amount of things happening. Now we're getting to the tail end of 94, summer of 94. We're going to talk about some movies. As we teased in the intro, we've got to talk about Woodstocks. Tony just clarified this before we started the show, so that'll be a fun conversation. And as always, the fan favorite album releases for the first half of August 94 will pop into that. But before we do that, we got to go back. And we got to go back to, look, at the time in the 90s, is it fair to say that authors, like there were certain authors that were just blowing up at the box office? Is that a fair statement to lead into this little segue here?
Without question. I mean, this is the height of like certain authors, selling their rights for movies. I mean, it happens all the time. You've got Grisham, and of course, you got the guy you're about to lead into here, of course, Tom Clancy, who's got a lot of that end up killing.
Yeah, it's really interesting because one of the things that we call this in the business, by the way, for those that want to keep a scorecard, we call this an option. Tony's dealt with a lot of options in his life. I don't know if he wants to go into that whole dialogue, but the thing about an option, I kind of feel like, yes, books have been made into movies throughout time, but it was really during the 90s where we started to see these options fly off shelves, where you would start to see things like, again, we'd get to Gresham and you have a series of movies. They were optioning stuff before he could finish it. Michael Crichton's another one. And then we get, of course, into Tom Clancy, which brings us to our first film, which brings us to Clear and Present Danger, one of my all-time favorite Harrison Ford movies, but also just one of my favorite military spy movies. And I think John Krasinski did a great job on the series that came out, but there's just something about Harrison Ford in this role that works so much better. And we've talked about Patriot Games in the past. What do we got for Clear and Present Danger? I mean, obviously there's a sequence in there that you and I talked about forever, which was that Chavez sniper sequence. Yeah. I was obsessed with it. And we love that actor. I'm sure you'll give us his name, but what do we got on Clear and Present Danger, Tony?
Well, first of all, you got this amazing cast, right? I mean, you got Harrison Ford, obviously. You got Willem Dafoe, Ann Archer, James Earl Jones is back as well. I mean, it's like a $60 million movie, did like $216 million, huge hit. I mean, I always was huge into Jack Ryan movies. I just thought they were always really entertaining, especially when Harrison Ford was doing the role as well. Even Hunt for Red October, before Harrison Ford takes over the role. But I've always enjoyed these films. I guess just spy elements and things like that, and just the overall thriller and action elements. That time frame was really kind of fun to watch at the theater. And I saw this one I definitely saw this one at permanent. Permanent.
Yeah, I did too. I remember seeing it. I may have even seen it with my dad, because he was a fan of Jack Ryan and he liked that line of thinking. The thing about the Jack Ryan movies that made him interesting is you have an analyst he's not Jason Bourne, he's not he's not Liam Neeson's in a Taken movie. He is straight up and down just kind of an everyman that gets forced into some really precarious situations, obviously with Patriot Games, and then in this one, it gets the back half of this movie. They set it up for a long time, and the action pays off extremely well. But what they're setting up is this big drug bust or this drug relationship sort of thing. And to get us to that point, there's so much groundwork that goes into it. There's so much intrigue that when it finally plays out, it is, like I said, it's one of my favorite sequences of all time, just because you get this really cool Willem Dafoe as a CIA asset that is he's like one of the paramilitary guys. It's a really solid movie from start to finish. A lot of great tension in it, and again, performances through all the characters are great. Willem Dafoe's probably, aside from Harrison Ford, and obviously James Earl Jones is great, but Willem Dafoe's really stand out as such a great, kind of sleazy, but you kind of like him kind of guy. Very good, questionable character.
Yeah, and of course you get Raymond Cruz as Domingo Chavez, who we were talking about. The Chavez character is amazing. Of course, we were. This is our era where we're pretty obsessed with snipers. Uh, I think it kind of starts with the movie Sniper, but this is that era where we kind of if there's a sniper in a movie, we believe in them, and,
Yeah.
and so this is part of that. I mean, listen, the cast is great. I mean, Ben Bratt's in this, Joaquin Dalmeda's in this, Miguel Sandoval, and you get a lot of these great these great Latino actors and stuff like that are popping into this movie as well because they've got this because they're using the South American flair in this film as well. So it's kind of cool. It's one of my favorites of the Jack Ryan series for sure.
Aside from some of the technology that's in it, because spy movies always have a bunch of tech in it, I recently watched these. I got on a kick where I watched Patriot Games. On Sundays, I often will lay around in the afternoon and watch a classic movie. And that's anything for me before 2000. So I try and go back. And I watched Patriot Games, and then the next Sunday, I watched Clear and Present Danger. And I got to tell you, Patriot Games is really good and holds up in its own way for being a thriller. It feels a little more dated in terms of just ideology. However, it doesn't take away the fact that the action's great. Clear and Present Danger holds up extremely, like it holds up as good now as it did. And it's a solid movie. And again, it's one of those ones that to me, it's a classic and just works in every way. Great movie. Very good from top to bottom. That comes out on August 3rd. When we go into August 5th, two things are going to happen. One, a movie and a soundtrack come out that already Tony is smiling. I can see him in the view there. He's smiling because this movie and the soundtrack was epic, and there's great stories about it. But then there's also maybe the it's in my top 5 most quotable movies, believe it or not. And I'll tell that story when we get to it. So let's start with these two incredible films that are clearly counter-programmed but are near and dear to both of our hearts. We're coming in with Airheads, and we're not just coming in with Airheads. We've got the soundtrack to discuss on this as well. So what do we got for Airheads, Tony? What a wild movie it was.
Yeah, it's a cool film because I think if it had been released a little bit later, a lot of these guys would become a lot bigger than they are in 1994. And so, because you got Brendan Fraser, you got Steve Buscemi, you got Adam Sandler, Chris Farley, Michael McKean, Judd Nelson, Michael Richards, Joe Montana. The cast is loaded, and Fraser and Sandler's not quite as big as he's not nearly as big as he's gonna get. So I mean, this release later on would have been a much bigger movie. It didn't do nearly as well at that time frame. So it's like at the time it was pretty much a flop. I mean, it did. It was a $15 million movie that did like $5 million at the box office. So it was one of those movies that kind of gets lost in August. which happens quite a bit at the box office. And of course, it's up against Fear and Present Danger, which has just been released a few days before, and so that's part of the problem as well. And August is just typically not the biggest month, so some movies usually get lost in the month, which is kind of why the studio puts them there if they don't really necessarily believe they're going to do as well. And yeah, that's kind of what happened to this movie. Didn't stop it from being awesome. It's a hilarious film, and like you said, an amazing soundtrack that is just loaded with really great metal hard rock.
And the premise is it's kind of funny because now we have Taylor Swift who went in and bought her songs back and re-recorded her own songs to control the rights, because that was the big deal to her, was controlling rights, because of, again, radio play doesn't matter as much now as it did, right? You need your songs out there, but it wasn't as big. But this is in a time where radio play is a massive deal. This is how you make or break a band. This is how people find you, because there was no internet to search out bands. And you have this very simple premise about a metal band that just wants people to hear their music. So they end up in a very precarious situation at a radio station, and there's hostages involved. And it is bizarrely 90s. It is very quintessential 90s, but it's just a ton of fun. And again, echoed by a soundtrack that's just loaded with stuff. Now I know there's I believe it's a White Zombie song on this soundtrack.
They're in the White Zombies in the movie.
There you go.
Because that's the whole scene with Chris Farley is in that club.
That's right.
That's great in itself, right? And then that soundtrack is loaded. It starts with "Born to Raise Hell" by Motorhead, who's doing the song with Ice-T and Whitfield Crane, and then "I'm the One with Four Non Bloods," and of course "Feed the Gods," which I've heard probably 100,000 times since I've owned this CD, because I own this CD, by White Zombie. And then "No Way Out" by D-Generation. "Bastardizing Angelica" by Primus is on this as well. "London" by Anthrax. "Can't Give In" by Candlebox. Dig is on this. "Prong," the Lone Rangers, of course, which is the band that is, this is the band that's in the movie. And then "Stuttering John" puts a song on this. "Stick," and then of course they end with "We Want the Airwaves" by the Ramones.
So interesting enough, I remember. Obviously, so people understand, my memory's not as good as Tony's. We've established that, but there are certain things that stand out, and I know for a fact that the song "Feed the Gods" by White Zombie was at the time the most played song in any vehicle that we drove around in. It was, especially if Tony was driving, that was a quintessential jam, and it's a great song. But one of the things I used to do in this time frame, I had a group of friends in school. It was a group of Jeff Worley and Jay Bloom were part of that group. But then there was 5 girls. They called themselves the Fab Five. And there's these 5 girls that we were friends with. And I used to make mixtapes, and I was really big into college radio. That was my dream, was to do radio, in addition to journalism. But radio was a big thing. I couldn't wait for college radio. And I used to make radio tapes where I would literally record myself audio-wise. This is pre-podcast days, kids. But I would record myself audio-wise with the microphone, and I would DJ it. And I remember this tape that I put out for them, and it would have been 94-ish era, and that I put out for them, that on the tape, it had some stuff I knew they'd like. Violent films they were into. They were very into, they liked John Spencer Blues Explosion. But those were soft for me at the time. I was very into heavy music. So there's a spot where I changed my voice and I'm like, "And up next is White Zombie with Feed the Gods." And I say it just like that. And I remember them getting that tape. I was like, "Hey, did y'all hear, did you like this tape?" And they're like, yeah, it was good, except for that White Zombie song. Meanwhile,
we did.
Yeah, that was our jam. It's a great soundtrack. I need to go pull it back up and listen to it just because of where it is. If you haven't seen Airheads, it's fun because it's the start of a lot of people's careers. You were saying something very interesting about it. Do you think, though, that at the peak of these individuals' careers, if they are higher up, like let's say it's 2 years later and they put this, I don't think the movie could get made because the budget would have been astronomical at that point.
Yeah, I mean, might have been. The thing is, they become more bankable too. So I mean, if you take the $15 million budget, maybe do 30, I mean, or something like that. You got to remember, I mean, Sandler was still doing smaller budgets when he first breaks out. I mean, Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore and all those movies are not that huge.
Right.
But when he busts out, so I think if you do the movie a couple of years later, I mean, maybe do it for 20 million, somewhere in that range. I still think it'd make money.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe
they
so.
got out of it anyway because I mean, there were secondary markets. Secondary markets are huge in this time frame, like we talked about a lot. And this is the kind of movie that gets seen in secondary markets really well. But yeah, unfortunately, got lost here. We saw it together at the Carmike, of course, down the road. And yeah, it's always a classic. I mean, I love the movie. I love the soundtrack, and I just think that this is one of those films that's kind of nice to go back and look at these guys. And another movie that I always thought that same thing with Sandler was Bulletproof, what he does with David Wayans as well. It's kind of like those movies to me stand out because they're kind of before he gets really big, and they feel a little different, but you can kind of see the talent. You know what I mean? So
Oh yeah.
it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's super fun on that side. Now, I don't remember seeing this in theaters. If I did, I might have seen it with like my parents or something. Because growing up, I watched it on television, and then eventually my mom bought a VHS box set of all the Little Rascals. It was like 600 tapes. It wasn't that many, but it was a lot of tapes. So the Little Rascals gets made into not modern version per se, but updated version. And when I worked at a place called Suncoast, which was probably 95 or 96, somewhere in there. I worked at a place called maybe a little bit later, but I worked at a place called Suncoast. It was one of the movies that was approved to play, much like Space Jam. I only had a limited amount of movies I could play during the day, and then in the afternoon we could play PG-13, certain things. But this was one of them. So I had this movie on all the time, and I memorized a huge chunk of it. And I like the Little Rascals anyway, but there are moments in here. If you've never seen this movie, it's the cutest, most wholesome thing you'll ever watch. Like, people talk about wholesome now on the internet. People are looking for wholesome. This is it. This is the wholesome. This is the wholesome you're looking for, 100%. And if you don't walk away singing, "We got a dollar, we got a dollar, we got a dollar, hey, 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 hey," it's the cutest series of events of a movie ever. Tony, you're kind of looking at me like I'm not talking about the right movie.
No. It's you're on it. I'm just I remember a funny story that involves your dad, um, involving that box set of Little Rascals. I remember we were going to hang out at your house one night, and it was going to be like it's you and me, and there's like two or three other people, and your parents are like leaving. They're going somewhere else. I think they were going down to like the beach house or something like that for the weekend or whatever. And your dad, right before he left, says to you and I, he goes, there's a box set of Little Rascals, the tapes that, if you guys want to watch them, I think they're pretty brilliant. He was talking about how much he loved them. And, we're just kind of looking at each other like we have no interest in watching the Little Rascals this evening at all. And of course we didn't. But yeah, I mean, this is a fun movie. I mean, I saw it, Carmike as well, and Penelope Spheris directed, and I mean, she always has good stuff, and it's a funny film. I didn't watch it as many times as you did, apparently.
Yeah, no, it was on my list, and also I always found it interesting that it is directed by Penelope Spheris, who, she's done some great movies, but like her background, I didn't know this at the time. Her background is having made this insane punk rock movie called The Decline of Western Civilization 2, I believe. and she had made this movie that's all about punk, and it is like gutter punk rock. Like it is the most punk of punk stuff in the heyday of like Reagan era. And so she's this like ultra punk rock crazy brilliant director who makes The Little Rascals. And I mean, obviously we've talked about it before, a variety of stuff, but the thing that fascinates me about this movie is I've watched it with my kids now as a filmmaker. Can you even imagine what that set must have been like? The insanity of you have to, there's all these regulations when you're working with kids. You have to have tutors on set. They can only work so many hours. There's safety concerns. I can only imagine that it was an absolute, I bet the shooting schedule was brutal on that based on what they had to do.
Oh, I'm sure. And on top of that, they had all those animals in that movie.
Oh, that's right.
Don't forget that bulldog, and there's all these people. So I mean, that's yeah. I mean, they got like the. I think there's a Doberman Pinscher in that movie too. There's a bulldog in there, of course, and you know there's the monkey that's in that movie as well.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, there's all these animals in there too. So you got Penelope Spears coming off of one of the biggest hit of her career, Wayne's World, first one, and she doesn't do the second one, and then you're doing a movie with nothing but children and animals.
Yeah, there's a very real saying inside of our business that if you get on a call with somebody in Tony's position, Tony's an assistant director and a producer, so Tony has to deal with a lot of logistics. If I got on a call with Tony and I would say, "Hey Tony, I have a project I'd like to hire you for," he'd be like, "Okay, yeah, tell me a little bit about it." And I use anywhere in the phrase kids or pets, there's a high probability that he looks at me like I'm a psycho and he says, I'm booked. Like it was a joke in our business for a long time. Like kids and pets, you don't, kids are brutal enough. Pets are brutally hard. People don't understand how difficult it is because animals are animals. Kids are kids. They act the same. So if you're bringing two wild cards together and you make a whole feature film, good luck to you. Good luck to you.
Well, the last movie I did, we had 5 kids in the film.
Oh boy.
We had a school set up right next to where we were shooting, and the lead actor, we had to have 2 actors because the lead actor, who was a kid, had to get a couple hours of prosthetics put on. He's a bird. And by the way, this movie comes out in October. It's called Soul on Fire. And it'll be in theaters. But he had to get a couple hours of prosthetics put on, and then we had to have another kid that would come in at a different time. We would also have to have prosthetics put on so he could do we could switch the kids out and shoot body double stuff with a different actor. Yeah, and he also comes around with because he's got multiple brothers and sisters. He's got multiple brothers and sisters in the movie, so we got all these other little kids too, including a baby, a little girl who just was constantly crying. Sweet kid didn't want to really be on set, and so it was just the way it went. But yeah, so kids are tough sometimes. Other times they're not. It just depends. It'd be nice if they could shoot these things. With shooting kids, it's always nice to shoot them in a time frame where they're not in school, because you don't have to worry about the schooling. You just have to worry about having people watch them. That's pretty much it. So.
Yeah, it's brutal. Well, we're gonna keep the kid thing rolling somewhat here because Pauly Shore is like a big kid.
Oh yeah.
We're going into a trio of movies. It's August 12th. A trio of movies come out. I'm gonna hammer them out real quick, and we'll go back and touch them. You get Karina, you get In the Army Now, and then you get the next Karate Kid. So let's jump back and start with Karina.
Well, I saw this one with my parents, mom and dad and little bro. We all see this one. This was a time frame when we were kind of going to the movies a little bit more. Dad would go and stuff like that too, so we could get him to the movies at certain time. This was one of those movies that we would go see, and I enjoyed it. It's kind of a comedy drama set in the Los Angeles suburbs in the 1950s, and there's this interracial mix here. She's Whoopi Goldberg comes in and plays the housekeeper, and Ray Liotta, of course, and Tina Majorino rounding out this great cast. Um, and Don Amici's in this movie too. I think it's the last film for him. And Joan Cusack, Larry Miller. It's a really good cast and a pretty good movie if you've never seen it.
I remember the name. I just don't remember the movie. And I don't know if it's popped up through our current cycle of films at the house. So I don't know. I don't remember it at all.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's like I said, all my parents and the whole family. We went to the Carmike and checked it out. Because I like watching everything. I was always a big Whoopi Goldberg fan. I know she's a little more outspoken these days, but
Yeah.
I'm still, I was always a big fan of her movies. And Ray Liotta, come on, man. I mean, I love Ray Liotta. But
And
yeah,
Ray Liotta's fun. When he steps out of a gangster role, it's kind of fun to see a Ray Liotta film where he's being not a mob boss type guy or a tough guy, because he's really pretty good. He was such a dynamically ranged actor. It's a little insane if you go look at his catalog. Like most people think of Goodfellas and stuff like that. But if you go look at his body of work, yes, there's some of that in there, but there's also like some really good, comedic, but even dramatic roles where he carries some stuff really well.
he could do it all.
Yeah, he
He
was
was
great.
a gifted actor for sure. Without a doubt. And that's why I love this cast. I mean, and Tina Majorino, she's got a couple movies that come out this month. She's got the movie Andre as well. We'll talk about that next show. But yeah, I mean it's entertaining film. Didn't do particularly huge. I mean, it was like a $10 million movie. It did like serviceable, made
Yeah.
money. But yeah, I mean it's not the kind of movie that destroys the box office. But nice counter programming if you're watching Jim Ryan films. Little little more family oriented for you.
Yeah. And then we get into the next kid, and I say this because he just acted like one. I can't imagine. Maybe your mom has a pretty good sense of humor. Not that your dad doesn't, but I can't imagine either of our dads ever wanting to go see In the Army Now.
I don't think
I remember my dad. My dad hated not Philip Dick, Andy K. Dick. He could not stand Andy K. Dick, and he hated Pauly Shore. Couldn't stand Pauly Shore. So now you get a Pauly Shore movie that pops out that I'm sure probably does well because Pauly. This might be the decline of him, but
he's doing well here. He's still doing well at this point.
yeah, that's what I thought.
I mean, this was like he made like this movie made like 30 million, and directed by Daniel Petrie. Stars Pauly Shore, of course, as you mentioned him. David Allen Greer and Andy Dick and Isai Morales and pretty good cast. But yeah, I mean, Pauly Shore movies are always crazy. I'm not entirely certain that my dad has ever seen a Pauly Shore movie. I know my mom because we've been her and I have been to them before. I know we went to see like stuff like that, so I know she has, but but I don't think my dad ever has, to my knowledge. He's never watched it with me. I'm not real sure. We never really talked about Pauly Shore's films. It's funny because Pauly Shore is pretty accessible on like X and stuff like that. He'll talk to you, and one of the things he gets a lot, and I talked to him about this, is he gets a lot of messages talking about wanting sequels to these films. And this is one of them right here. I'm always like, don't do any sequels to these movies because it's just going to be, it's not getting to the theaters. We know
Right.
that. It's not going to get to the theaters. It's going to be an awful, awful streamer. It's going to be terrible. And all these guys are older now, and it's never, you never quite capture the fun and the essence of the first one. It's a nostalgia play only. It never quite works. And but this is the movie. This is one of them right here. Like a lot of people usually want the sequel on this movie, this particular one. And I know he's kind of like probably would do anything for the most part. You know,
I would have liked to have seen him play Richard Simmons.
That would have been no. It would have been made. I think he's still trying to do it. He's still
I
trying
I
to.
I think I saw the little short film that they made. If you haven't seen it, you can find it on YouTube. But it's Pauly Shore playing Richard Simmons, and it's so good, and it's just so much fun. Just because that's how Richard Simmons was. He was just a very bright guy. I know he dealt with a lot of stuff, but like his TV personality was very bright. And Pauly Shore does a great job of capturing that. If you haven't seen it, In the Army Now is again, it's a Pauly Shore movie. So luckily for him, he did some things very brilliantly by having his own style of talking and communicating. And he has really great comic pedigree. I believe his mom was in charge of the Comedy Store in Los Angeles for a long time. Pauly Shore's got the ability to deliver comedic success, and that's what you get. You just have to like his style of comedy, which, it was an acquired taste, I think is a fair thing to say.
So it sold really well in the '90s. I mean, he was big. He's that kind of actor, right? Like kind of like a John Heater or somebody like that pops in, has their like handful of years of being bigger, and then kind of disappear, unfortunately. But
Yeah,
I mean, he's still around. He still does. He's doing his stand up. He does, but I mean, he's just not as many movies as he used to.
that's right. And then that takes us into the next Karate Kid. And I'm just going to be real honest with you. There have been so many Karate Kids after the Karate Kids that I don't remember the Karate Kids. So, like, I don't remember this movie at all. The last one I remember had Jackie Chan. It's not this one. There's no way.
No, that doesn't come out till 2010. So it's a while. It's a while before we get to that one.
All right. So, what happens in the next Karate Kid? Because I don't remember. I don't remember this whatsoever. I don't even know if I've even seen this movie.
So, still has Pat Morita. Pat
Okay.
Morita's. We now have Hilary Swank in the Ralph Macchio role.
Okay. Now I'm starting to remember.
She's not playing Danielson, but she's his student. Michael Ironside's in this as well, and this movie still made money. It's like a $12 million movie. Brought the budgets down a little bit. I think they knew that it wasn't going to be as big as any of the other ones, and it still made money, but because it made like 16 million, and the secondary market did fairly well. But yeah, I mean, it's not as good as any of the first three that have Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita together. It's not as good as anything behind it because all
Right.
behind it with Jackie Chan and of course the new one, the Karate Kid Legends movie, which is very good. That just came out this summer, and not as good as those films. Not terrible, not a bad movie. If you're into the Karate Kid movies and you're trying to go through them all one by one, turn it on, flip it on. It's entertaining. You get kind of the young Hilary Swank before she starts getting a lot bigger. At this point, she's going to get pretty big, become a pretty big star. Um, this is kind of the start of that.
Yeah, now that you say it, I remember that. I think I didn't watch it not because I don't like Hilary Swank or any of that. It just didn't. I don't know. It just didn't resonate with me. And now that you say that, I remember it being a Suncoast. It was one of the movies we could play. We did not play it. The thing about those is this is one of those, like we've talked about it and we've echoed this throughout, especially like 93 and 94, the unnecessary sequel situation. And this is a prime example of an unnecessary sequel.
Perfect example of an unnecessary sequel, right here. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't mean it's not entertaining. It doesn't mean they didn't try hard or anything like that. It's just one of those movies that you kind of go, okay, they took down the budget and tried to get a cash grab. It's that kind of feel. Yeah, I mean, I always feel like these types of movies are tough sells because you just did three movies where you've got Pat Morita and Ralph Macchio together, and they're beloved characters. And now all of a sudden, Macchio's out of the equation, and you got Hilary Swank. That's a tough sell for a movie. It really is.
Yeah.
It's just tough to remove that core pivotal character and replace him. It's just not an easy thing to do for anybody, really. I mean, it doesn't sell here to me, and it doesn't really sell in a lot of cases where they do that. But you know, but entertaining film, it's not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. Of course, Pat Morita's, always great, and this, this is his last. This is his last Miyagi role. So
Yeah, he retires the Miyagi after that. So while we could say that this was an unnecessary sequel, there's an extremely necessary sequel, in my opinion. I believe you agree with me. In the summer of 1994, and that is, I'm going to pluralize it so you can explain. That is going to be the Woodstocks. So for those that don't know, this is literally the sequel, the 25-year sequel to Woodstock, the famous Woodstock. Now, don't get this one confused with the one in 1999. There's a documentary out about the one in 99. What's that?
people do get this confused a lot.
Yeah.
They do
The
think
1990.
They do think this is the 1999 one where everybody gets all the stuff starts blowing up and everything. Yeah, this is not that Woodstock. 5 years later, that'll be a different deal.
Yeah, this Woodstock, this one actually embodies a lot more of the traditional sort of vibe of Woodstock, even though it has modern artists. And we'll talk about some of those or whatever Tony has planned for the segment. But I just wanted to specify that because I remember Woodstock 94 more so than I remember 99. The reason why is because I resonated with more music in the 94 version than I did in the 99. Not to say I didn't, but 99 was starting. It was basically the precursor kind of like an Ozfest. It was a lot more heavy acts and there was riots and the 99 one, if you want to learn about it, watch that. Unfortunately, they didn't make a great documentary on 94 and they should have, because it's a wild series of events. And there's a lot to unpack inside of this conversation with the artists that are there, which is the most diverse range of artists. This is pre-Coachella and any of that kind of crap. You have a huge range of diversity in artists. Then this insane thing happens where MTV is covering it, of course, back when MTV actually cared about music. But they also offered it as a pay-per-view that was a 72-hour package or whatever it was. Was it 72? It's more than 72 hours, right? It was something like that.
I think they dialed that down because I don't think they gave it up as a 24-hour package.
Okay.
Dialed it down, and of course our buddy Wade, our cousin Wade, would purchase this and record I believe it was 6 VHS tapes loaded with performances that we would end up watching. He didn't buy this. He was adamant about buying it, and we didn't buy it. We went over there for a couple hours, watched one afternoon, and then saw the tapes later on. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I mean, listen, I was huge into the '69 stuff. That was that era is huge for me. I loved all those bands. I am fascinated. I'm a student of that event and a lot of those concerts and those festivals back in those days. So I study that quite extensively and always have. And so I was really intrigued by this Woodstock when this was announced. And in '99, of course, we'll get to that later on. But I actually tried to attend that the '99.
The 99 Woodstock?
Had a chance to maybe attend the '99 one with a couple friends of mine, and didn't do it. Thank God. But yeah. So I mean, but the '94 one was really cool, man. We'll get some.
Do you have some of the artists to kind of? Can we go over some of that? Do you have that prepped to maybe at least just give a sample of how insanely? I know that Aphex Twin played, which is mind blowing to me. At some point, I think it might have been Thursday or Friday, whenever it started, he was on one of the earlier. The fact that Aphex Twin is playing in the same festival as Metallica and Joe Cocker is just, I think Joe Cocker played, but the idea of, and Primus played, but it's just the weirdest diverse mix of music on the planet.
So I mean, originally it was supposed to be a 2-day event, and
right.
You know, it's a very core. This is kind of the corporate one. I mean, you know, it's not the same feel as the original Woodstock. Original Woodstock was put together in a totally different way, and this is more of a corporate feel to it, of course. But um, some great. I mean, but then eventually they do 3 days in this event.
Right.
But you know, the first day is like the Goats and Huffamoose Orleans, who I actually got their shirt on right now.
Look at that.
When I did that. But Blues Traveler, Jackal, Delamitri, Live, your favorite band, Live, was uh, James, King's X, Cheryl Crow, Collective Soul, Candlebox, Violent Films. Then on the other stage, 'cause that was like the main stage, on the Ravestock stage, they had Apex Twin, D Light, DJ Spooky, Frankie Bones, Kevin Saunderson, The Orbital. Yes, I mean that was a very good first day.
I mean that alone, like if you look at this list of just that setup, and if you're not into all the crazy stuff, and you look at it, and you're going to get Orleans, you're going to get Blues Traveler. I mean, we joke about Jackal because Jackal has a bass player named Jeff Worley, and our dear friend Jeff Worley, friend of the show, family member, is also a bass player. Then you get James, which again, very weird Englishy style mixed in with Candlebox and the Violent Femmes, and then Cheryl Crow. Like and the Goats are in that mix. You're talking about that is the most diverse range of music on a single stage I've seen in a long time. Like again, just to remind everybody, this is pre-Coachella, and then because at the time electronic music had broken into its own culture, you have this rave stock thing. It's just a wild series of, again, it's just weird stuff. And then when you get to day 2, to me it gets even weirder. Go ahead.
Or you get to day 2, because one of the things because you brought up Apex Twin, and the funny thing about that performance is he gets disconnected in the middle of it.
Yeah,
because he signed a fake name on his contract. Like he doesn't actually even get to finish the performance. So they disconnect him in the middle of the performance because he signs a fake name on his contract. And then one of the things that happened on that day as well, I remember the lead singer Jackal was doing all this crazy stuff on set. Jesse James Dupree would do all this crazy stuff. I know he like lit a joint on set, and he was pouring alcohol onto the crowd. I remember all that. And then at one point, he lights a stool on fire on stage, lit a stool on fire on stage, and took a rifle and started shooting it up into the air.
What?
This all happened in that on that Jackal set. And then he like cut his hand and he started bleeding or something, and he had blood all. It was crazy. So that was something that happened on day 1. That was kind of wild. I remember that Jackal set was pretty intense.
So then you go into day 2 after this Jackal fiasco, and like I said earlier, it's if you just look at the the primary stage, they had 2 stages, I guess, but if you look at this first stage, the lineup of people, the mix of individuals playing around each other is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, I mean Joe Cocker, Blind Melon, and Cypress Hill, and Rollins Band, Melissa Etheridge, Crosby, Stills and Nash, 9 Inch Nails, Metallica, and Aerosmith, all playing the same stage. Pretty awesome.
I mean, this is like somebody going to a buffet and literally getting one of every item possible. And the buffet is an international buffet. Like you're getting a mix of, I mean, Cypress Hill and Melissa Etheridge, Cypress Hill and Joe Cocker is odd enough. Cypress Hill and Crosby, Stills, and then not to mention that it's just Cypress Hill, who's maybe one of the most outlandish, but you also have 9 Inch Nails in the mix, who is as bizarre as they are in this time frame. 94, 9 Inch Nails is edgy. They're out there on that side. And then you have the political punch of Rollins. It's just bizarre to me. Yeah. And yet, when we go to the other stage, it too is equally weird. And the thing that stands out the most to me about the second stage, and I'll let you do the read off, is when we get to Primus. It that set becomes iconic for a lot of reasons, but I'll let you hit that up. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. Nina Bach and the Cranberries, Zucchero, Zuzu Dar, and the band featuring Hot Tune, Bruce Hornsby, Roger McGuinn, of course, Rob Wasserman and Bob Weir. And then Primus, of course, takes the stage with Jerry Cantrell and Allison James. And then
Unbelievable.
Vinks. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing. The reason, do you know why Cantrell takes the stage with Primus? There's a reason
I do
behind it.
not. No. I don't remember.
Allison Chains got invited to this event originally, but they couldn't do it because of Lane Staley's drug issues at the time.
Ah,
So that was one of the problems. So Lane Staley couldn't make it, so they decided not to go Allison Chains as a full band, and Cantrell takes the stage with Primus for this epic set that you probably should try to go back and watch if you can. It was pretty
it's
amazing.
on YouTube. When I was doing my research, it is up on YouTube. I am going to go rewatch it, at least listen to it. This is also where most people get confused with 1999 and 1994 because during this set, it rains and that place gets very muddy. Both places had mud. 99 and 94 both got muddy. But what most people confuse, this is the performance where the mud started flying, and it was during Primus's set. I believe it's during the song My Name is Mud, which is one of the albums, it should be the album they're pushing at the time. This is when it goes haywire. And a lot of times I find when I've had conversations about 99 and this, people talk about this set, and they even say Primus. I'm like, nope, that was 94, because I do remember that. And it was a big deal because we were huge Primus fans, and I mean, we still both like them a lot, but like this was big, especially me. Pork Soda was my favorite Primus record. And so this is when you start getting the mudslinging and all that stuff happens during that Primus set, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's that is exactly what had happened. Some of the fascinating things that happened on the day. I don't know if you remember that Blind Melon set, but Shannon Hoon takes the stage in a dress,
Oh, right.
in like his girlfriend's dress, and they
Right.
believe, and it's not far from being reality. They believe he was tripping on acid at the time during the set. You know, rest in peace, Shannon Hoon. He eventually passes away not too long after this, believe it or not. But yeah, I mean, it's they think he was tripping on acid. And of course, Nine Inch Nails set was so packed, it overwhelmed the area. There were so many people there to watch that set. It overwhelmed the area. We had like double the capacity of most of the bands that played, and so everyone. Nine Inch Nails was massive in 1990.
Right.
I mean they're massive in this time frame, and everybody wanted to see that set. That was a big deal. And then of course, for people that don't know, a lot of the Aerosmith guys were at the original Woodstock. Like they just showed up and stuff like that. So they demanded to play their set at like 3 a.m. when they took the stage for this. So it was yeah, absolutely. This is definitely, you're right. I mean, this is definitely the Primus set is, My Name is Mud, and this is where they get pelted with mud, and it's an amazing set, and everybody should watch that Primus Jerry Cantrell set. It's neat. I mean, you can find a lot of these on YouTube. I mean, because like you said, it was a pay-per-view, so a lot of the stuff's out there. You can try to locate it.
And then we land on the third day. Again, very different mix up of bands. What I think is really interesting is Lollapalooza has been happening at this point. Jane's Addiction may not really be in, they might be on hiatus because I believe Porno for Pyros plays. I was a big Porno for Pyros fan. But Lollapalooza existed. And so this all is corresponding, whereas Lollapalooza back in this time frame was kind of, this is where they say it started to have the corporate struggle. Lollapalooza being the most classic of the alt rock festivals there ever was, and then became much more of a, now it's a pop festival. It's very little alt rock, but like back then it was a big deal. And so it's interesting they're in the mix. So here we go. What's the lineup on this? Because it's got a, also there was another band. There's other bands on this next list. Go ahead and I'll let you go through that side of it.
They tried to keep it a little bit more Woodstock '69. on the third day. I mean, so they got bands that kind of line up a little bit better with that, in my opinion. But Country Joe McDonald, played, and of course he was up for Legion. And Sisters of Glory featuring Thelma Houston, Cece Peniston, Phoebe Snow, Mavis Staples, and Lois Walton. Arrested Development, which is a group I always thought could have played the very first Woodstock.
Absolutely.
The Allman Brothers Band, Traffic, of course. Spin Doctors, who is another band that probably fits this mold very well. Porno for Pyros, Bob Dylan, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Peter Gabriel were all on that big North stage.
And that's again, it's not as wild, but if you look at like some of them make sense, and then you do draw in like Chili Peppers and Porno for Pyros and things kind of that's different, right? They're not necessarily traditional in that sense, although arguably you have two of the biggest rock icons in, well, the entire band of Red Hot, but in Porno for Pyros with Perry Farrell at the time, these are very big alt rock individuals, not discounting Spin Doctors. I just mean brand name wise. Those guys were, frontmen on that side. So then what else do we have on the other side of things?
I remember, by the way, harassing Wade to get this tape for that Spin Doctors. I really wanted to see it badly. And I remember harassing him for it. I'm like, wait, you got it. Give me the tape. It's like, because, at one point he wanted to watch them again. And we had trouble getting, if you remember, we had trouble getting these tapes
Yeah,
for time. It was like, he would tell us about the performance and wouldn't let us see it.
right.
And we had to, and that was like, that went on for like a couple of weeks before he finally relinquished them. It was like, dude, you were going to let us, that's the whole point of taping them. You recorded them so we could watch them at some point. And we had to like bribe him to get the tapes. So the South Stage, John Sebastian from Love and Spoonful, and Country Joe came on this stage as well. Gil Scott Heron was there, Womad, and Green Day, of course, has a massive set. That's the Mud's going to come flinging for Green Day as well. Paul
Yep.
Rock and Blues Review featuring Slash and Neil Sean and Andy Frazier and Jason Bonham, and the Neville Brothers, Santana featuring Eric Gales, and Jimmy Cliff's All Star Reggae Jam featuring Rita Marley, Pika Mouse, and Shabba Ranks. Pretty epic set.
Yeah, it is. You close it out like you said. That's the most Woodstocky vibe. But there's still some edge in play, as you mentioned, the Green Day mud tossing event. At some point, MTV started calling it Mudstock, and everybody can. I didn't hear
Yeah,
you. I'm sorry.
Green Day set's pretty epic because they start tossing stuff back at the crowd during that
Right.
set. That's what makes that so much fun. So they're getting pelted with mud, a lot like Primus does, but they start tossing it back. And so that's another set to check out. Green Day's huge in 1994. I mean, they're still pretty big, and but 1994 they're massive, and they're more into their punk phase at this point. So yeah, they were kind of amazing.
So yeah, so while we have this Woodstock going on, the thing that I didn't know, and the reason we say it was plural, is you informed me that there's also another Woodstock happening simultaneously. Could you go back over that stuff, because I thought it was kind of an interesting point of reference there.
Yeah, so this one happens. This is like the more large corporate one that was happening about 70 miles away from the original Max Jager's farm in Bethel, New York. And there are probably about anywhere from 10 to 13,000 people that actually go to the original site, Max Jager's farm, from the 1969 festival. And they do, and Richie Havens organizes a little festival for like 3 days over there. And so there's basically like two festivals going on, right? And this one has, and we'll just go through these bands real quick because there's not as many bands as that other festival. Um, Mountain's going to be there. Ricky Havens, of course. Shauna Na's there because they played the original. And the Grasshoppers, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, who was like the very first band to take the stage um, at the original festival. And Country Joe goes over and plays this one as well. Fleetwood Mac does a quick set over here as well, and Melanie Victoria Williams is here as well, and Canned Heat, Julie Lee, Leon Russell, Soul Asylum, Dave Perner comes in and does a quick set with Victoria Williams. So they come in, do a quick set. Of course, he's doing that album Sweet Relief at the time, which is an ode to Victoria Williams' music. And so they come in, do a quick set, and bolt out because he was dating Winona Ryder at the time, and they all had to leave quick. And then Tom Paxton rounds out this festival as well, which I always found funny because you can actually find video about the Bethel concert. Just make sure you see that it's definitely 1994 Bethel because that's different than the other one. You get them mixed up. If you just type in Woodstock '94, you won't get it. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. I mean, of course, the other one's much bigger. It's got a lot more bands and range of bands. It would still been kind of fun to go to the original site 25 years later and hear some of these great bands, most of which were at the original festival.
Yeah, it's an interesting series of events because you have this corporate event, this corporate structured event. Let's put it that way, and yet many of the artists still acted like they were at the original Woodstock, and they treated it as such as like with the freedom that came with that entire event, which is pretty incredible. Again, one thing that we say is, look, everybody has their generation of music, but when you talk about something like Woodstock at 94, not 99, again, 1994 Woodstock or the 69 Woodstock, both of those are iconic. Whereas the bands that were playing, the bands that we listen to, our generation of music, these are all some of the best heavy hitter bands at the time. They were big, but this isn't like Taylor Swift or other pop artists. These are still alt rock, different types of bands. They're big, but they're just different in that space. And if you think about it in terms of that, of how you've taken two generations and crossed them over and brought music together, it's a really fascinating side of things. And that's why music's such a big part of the show, is because of how important it was to us. And certainly it is still, but a lot of times we still go back and you listen to your generational music because there's a comfort inside of that. With that being said, Tony, one of the fan favorite things that you introduced on the show so brilliantly well was the album releases for a time frame. So what do we have for the first half? Since we're breaking the month in half, we got the first half of 1994, August 1994. What do we have in the docket? I'm sure I'm going to be shocked and feel old.
There's some good ones. I mean, of course, Jackal's playing Woodstock, and of course, I just talked about everything that happened on their set. They released the album "Push Comes to Shove" in August. They're promoting that album at Woodstock, which is kind of cool. Love Spit Love releases their album "Love Spit Love." The Tractors release their self-titled album. The Tractors, my mom's. Sponge releases "Rotting Pinata."
Yeah, there we go. That's a Tony jam.
That's a big album. I do love Sponge. They're pretty awesome. Yeah, that's a big. Sophie B. Hawkins releases Whaler. I gotta mention Sophie B. Hawkins. Both Community fans, so come on.
Yeah.
And Melvin's released the album "Prick."
Oh, great record. Yeah, great record.
April Wine, who was a great '80s band that I have recently seen like twice. So, but they released "Frigate" in the '90s, which is kind of cool. And then Orbital releases "Cinovation," so that's pretty good album too.
Oh yeah, it's a great record.
And Machine Head releases "Burn My Eyes." Stereolab releases "Mars Audio Quintet," and then Gravediggers does their debut. This is where we get into those groups with 6 Feet Deep, into those rap groups, which are kind of fun. And then literally one of my all-time favorite records, from front to back, by maybe the most talented musician to ever live. I'm not lying about that. And if anybody has not heard this record that's listening, what you're doing and go listen to it because it's one of the best records to ever be released. And the guy never released another album after this. Jeff Buckley is going to release the album Grace, and it
Yep.
is probably one of the greatest albums ever released.
The craziest thing about that Jeff Buckley record is the impact it had for so long, even after his untimely death, and it is like it came around all. It was deep into to the 2000s when people were still treating it like it had just come out. Like the reverence people have for that record, like much like you do, is mind blowing. And it took me a long time to listen to it because I wasn't a big singer songwriter type guy. But once I did, I got it, and now I'm like in the same ballpark of I get why people loved it so much. It's an incredible record. Um, it's
Any,
interesting. No, go ahead.
Anybody can listen to that record.
Yep.
It's there's not an age range or a type. Everybody can listen to that record. That record is amazing for every single human being on this planet to listen to. There's nobody who couldn't listen to that. I
Yeah.
mean, it crosses genres in such a way. If you have an appreciation of just music in general, the album has upbeat songs. It has songs that are very melodic. His songwriting on that album is second to none. And I mean, it is really it's like God put him on the planet just to make this one record, and then took him away from us.
Yeah.
He has this drowning incident in Memphis a couple years later, and for whatever reason, he never really released. He released a couple EPs that were small, but it had mostly songs that he'd already released on them. They came after this, but this is his only studio album, and it's like he was trying to put together another studio album. His band was flying in. He went out, fully clothed, and went into the water. And a boat came by, and the wave got him and took him out, and that was it. And
Yeah. It,
he was not no drugs or alcohol played a role in that. Um, his toxicology came back clean. Just went out for a swim and never came back.
it is one of those ones where, like you said, it is one of those weird situations where like, man, God maybe really did put this dude to write one record and write it so well and put out music that would last a lifetime. Um, and the limitation of that is that maybe that's the beauty of his art. He got one record, and that's what makes it even more special. Is it never he never had a chance to, quote, back in the day, this is a '90s term, sell out or do anything else. He just got that one record out, and it was just from the heart and good to go.
Yeah.
Which is the interesting part about music in general, and that's why we've talked about it so much, why we added in. So I got to ask anybody out there, what is your favorite album that we've talked about so far? Like, there's a pretty big list going on. You can kind of pull it up and find it. What's your favorite album? Are you a Jeff Buckley fan? If you want to be part of the conversation, Facebook's the major place we do that. If you go over to Facebook and look up Back for Our Future podcast, you'll find us very easily. We're also on YouTube. We read the comments. We love the comments. You can also leave comments on Spotify. The other thing you can do is also give us a great review on wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. As we continue to grow, we want to keep the show going. This is history, but we want your feedback too. We want to hear what stories you may have. So if you have a cool story, something that we can even read on the air, we're okay with doing that. We may have to censor in case you put names in it too much. But point is we want you to be part of the conversation just as much as we are. So feel free to head over to any of those spots and hit those up. Tony, as we get ready to close out here, I'm going to give you the last word. You got anything from this episode we need to hammer home aside from Jeff Buckley?
You know I was going to say that.
I know.
Yeah, no, you know, check out some of those. Check out some of those Woodstock performances because I can never get enough of them. I just love watching those live music performances, which is why I go to shows all the time and record stuff now incessantly, as we can tell you from our festival going. Yeah, I mean, check out some of those Woodstock performances. Sit back and enjoy them because you know We're never gonna get another one of those.
That's right. All right, well, that's going to do it for the show. Thanks for hanging out. And as always, Tony, last word.
Peace.